right, guys. Today we have a special guest. Let 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 him in. Hey, how you doing?
What's going on, man? Appreciate you having me on.
No problem, no problem.
How you
So
doing
how
today?
yeah? So how was your day?
My day was well. Thanks for asking. How was yours?
It could have been better, but you know,
Yeah. We. I think we're all in that. Could have been better days, but
yeah. So yeah, I do really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
yeah, most definitely. I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor to be on.
Oh, thank you.
You've had some special guests on, so I was definitely honored.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I just want to know how did you become a Raiders fan? Were you a Oakland Raiders fan, or were you the LA Raiders fan, or are you just the Viking, the Vegas Raiders?
I've been a fan for all actually. I'm 50 years old, so I've been a fan my whole life. So I
Wow,
I started liking them when I was about 6, 7 years old, 5, 6, and
jeez.
then about a year after two after that they moved to LA. Then they won a Super Bowl, and I've been a diehard ever since.
And you told me that you live in Arizona, so
Um, yeah, actually I live in Arkansas at the moment, but I've been out here for about a month, staying with my sister and mom, just visiting family, hanging out. So a little vacation.
that's cool. But did you used to live in like LA or California or?
Yes, yes, I was born in California, in Norwalk, California. Pretty much lived all over, Downey, Bellflower, Orange County, and even up as far as Big Bear, California, Bakersfield, Lucerne Valley, all over California. Lived in Vegas for most of my life, and a little bit in Arkansas. Pops lives out there, so I went out there a lot when I was, in high school. Bounced back and forth.
Good God, okay, nice. So what made you just create a YouTube channel?
Just a passion for the Raiders in Arkansas. There's it's close to Kansas City. There's a lot of Kansas City Chiefs fans, so there's not too many Raider fans. I should probably start an Arkansas Raider group. I probably need to get on that, but I know there's a lot of people from Arkansas and LA. But just seeing everybody in the nation join together, collab, do shows together, get other people's opinions, talk about Raider football, which, I could do 24 hours a day. So, you know, just a love of Raider Nation and footballs. Figure I'd start a podcast and, get my point out there.
Oh, that's cool. As you can see, I'm a big, huge Green Bay Packers fan. So.
We're gonna have to convert you.
No, no, I've been a Packers fan since I was 18.
Nice, nice. So I'm sure you guys are really happy about the Josh Jacobs deal. How you feel about that?
Ooh, he he was a great addition to the Packers. That guy is tough.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people, including myself, that hated to see him go. He's got that Raider shield tatted on him, and it's hard to let like guys like that leave the building. But we all know it's a business, and y'all got a real one. Y'all got a good one for sure.
Actually, that was my next question. I was going to ask, how did you feel when he left the Raiders?
Um, I thought it was, he got a raw deal. The whole Tom Telesco thing, not really believing in, the power of running backs, or you know the how much they're needed to take pressure off the quarterback, to run the clock. And I don't think Tom Telesco just valued the running back position. So Josh Jacobs, given his heart and soul for Raider Nation, he was drafted here. The man
Yes,
slept
he
in his
was.
car playing football in college before he was drafted. So for for the upper management to do a guy like that, um, it just looks bad for the organization. So you know the way it all went down, I thought it was pretty bad. But we have Ashton Genty, so everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. The drop was about, I think, 2 weeks ago. So how did you feel about the picks that the Raiders made?
I feel that they killed it in this draft. I think they did pretty well last year, getting Brock Bowers, of course,
Oh,
JPJ, DJ Glaze. They got three starters out of the draft, and I believe they might have more out of this draft. They drafted very well with Ashton Genty. A lot of people you know, would question the, taking a running back that high at number 6, saying it's a luxury pick. But I feel that was one of our biggest needs. And why not fill, one of the biggest holes on your team with one of the best running backs to ever come out of college so far? To me, it made sense. And then you had a guy like Jack Beck and Dante Thornton and Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant and even guys like Mallet and Cody Lindenberg in the 7th round. Like I think all these guys are going to produce for this team.
um, the thing that I didn't get is they could have took a quarterback in this draft, but they didn't.
I, I don't know if not taking a quarterback was just the quarterbacks that were in the draft, or it's maybe they have faith in guys that are already in the building, like a Aiden O'Connell or like a Carter Bradley. If you watch some of the highlights this year already in OTAs, I thought Carter Bradley looked pretty well. He had zip on the ball. He has a strong arm. He's a strong kid for a running back. He's got decent speed. He's kind of mobile. So there's a reason he's still on this roster. Maybe they see something in some of these guys and feel they don't really need to go get a guy this year or next year. Maybe they're waiting for a guy like a Arch Manning to come out. But I feel like with Pete Carroll bringing in Geno Smith, there was no real reason to get a quarterback first, second, 3rd round, and make that guy sit for 2 years. I guess if you're getting a guy in the 3rd round, it's not as bad sitting for 2 years. But if you're taking a guy higher than that and you have a guy like Ashton Genty on the board, it just made more sense to me.
Well, the Raiders could have got Shador Sanders.
Yeah, yeah, and then Tom Brady with all the work he's done with Shador, signing him to his label and his NIL
Yeah, yeah,
deal.
yeah.
So I just the way I felt about that is um, if Brady thought that high of Shador Sanders, he would have drafted him. There's no reason he would have passed on him, and he would have made sure that Spytek and Pete Carroll knew, and Al Davis, Mark Davis, knew that that's the guy he wanted, and we all know that Mark respects Tom Brady, and whatever Tom Brady said, I'm sure he would have said, that's the way we're going. So I
Mm,
just felt like if Tom Brady was really that high on Shador and felt like that was their quarterback of the future, he would have drafted him. And there was a lot of teams that obviously he fell to the 5th round. That was a little far, but I
yeah,
feel
that
like there was
was
just a lot of teams that were scared of, you know, his um his sacks,
attitude.
yeah, his attitude, um the the focus is going to be on him if he's not starting right away. How's
Yeah,
that going to look having his father? It's just, I think it was more about the light it was going to bring on the football team and the franchise, for any team that drafted him. And Cleveland took a chance, and I hope the kid successful and proves all the critics wrong, because I believe he's definitely talented. He shouldn't have fell to the 5th round. I thought that was
yeah,
way
yeah.
too far. But when you put the whole picture together, and you're not really giving it your all in interviews because you don't want to go to those teams, or you know you're lashing out at coaches because they caught you. They try to put plays in there that you should catch as a quarterback, and other guys didn't, and you did. Other guys did, and you didn't. So I think if you just put all that together, it just came down to character, him having more money than the franchises that are drafting him.
So,
That it's a lot. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's a lot. So, the upcoming season is almost here. I would love to get your prediction on the Raiders this year. Like
I
how many wins? Are they gonna change quarterback in the mid-season, or are they gonna stick with for the whole season?
that's a lot of good questions. Now, I probably lost a lot of followers for this, but I went out on a limb this year, and I said I think we have a chance to compete for the division. If you look at our schedule, we play
Wow,
six
okay.
we we play six teams that were in the top, that were in the top 10 of the draft last year. A lot of those teams, the Giants, the Titans, the
Mm,
Patriots,
yeah,
all those teams got better. The Bears, all those teams got better, but I think the times that we play them, I think our record last year was not equivalent to the talent that we have on the team.
mhm,
We have a scary defensive line. We have a up and coming offensive line. Now we have, Brock Bowers. You have guys like Jacoby Myers. So I feel like this team is going to compete. And then you add in a guy like Pete Carroll with, um, he's got like 40 something years coaching experience.
yes,
you
he does.
know when you got a guy like that, and then you bring in a guy that all he has to do is be your offensive coordinator, and a guy like Chip Kelly who's won Super Bowls, who's won national championships. I feel like this team, if they do two things that they haven't done in a long, long time: win the turnover battle and win the games that they're supposed to win. And I know
Mhm,
if you look at the sports book right now, we're only favored to win one game all year, but I believe
yeah,
after the first or second, game of this season, I think all those numbers are going to change. So I believe, I think our floor is somewhere around 8 games. I think our ceiling is 12. So I went out on a limb and said we're going 12-5, which is, crazy. But hey, if it happens, everybody is going to be ecstatic and they're going to shock a lot of people. But we have one of the toughest divisions in football. So a lot has to happen for that to happen. But, when
that is the toughest. You got Patrick Mahomes in there. You got both Knicks in there.
yeah,
Just
Justin Herbert.
yeah. So it's kind of a challenge for the Raiders in that division right now. So
Well, if we look at our schedule, if we go 0-6 in our division and win the games, the teams
yeah,
the games that we should win, we still end up 9-8. So, if you win a couple more games, a couple games in that division, 3 games in that division, that puts you, at 11 wins. So, there's a big possibility with, um, the schedule San Diego has, the schedule the Broncos have. They
oh
both
yeah,
have tougher schedules. Kansas City has toughest schedules. Kelsey's on the decline, so that's
yes
that's
it
Patrick
is.
Mahomes, go-to guy. Can those receivers for Kansas City step up? Can they stay out of trouble and stay out of jail? That's another, you know, another
Yeah,
big question for
yeah, that's
Kansas
a
City.
that's a good argument right there.
So, a lot of these teams, and I, you know, the Chargers, they look really good. They have probably the best offensive line, up
Oh
there
yeah,
in
yeah,
in football right now. And then you get a Najee Harris and O'Marion Hampton. How many carries is O'Marion Hampton going to get?
yeah.
That's a big question. So, all these teams got better, but I feel like our defense played well with 7 starters out most of the season last year, and 3 of them, were key guys that, Malcolm Kuntz, Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins. When you lose guys like that on your front, it's hard to compete in games. And I thought, we did that. We competed for a while, um, even with the injury. So I think with this new regime, better coaching, I think it's going to be a better team, and you're going to see a totally different Raiders team.
So right now you're telling me that you do the you do believe in Geno Smith as
That's
QB.
That's the biggest question I have is Geno Smith.
Yeah, that's the big question.
We seen yesterday he threw 3 interceptions in practice. That was
Oh,
the
ouch.
second the second scrimmage. But the people are like, oh, pump the brakes, don't panic yet. But we seen the same thing with Gardner Minshew last year. He
Yeah,
came in, he threw a bunch of interceptions, in camp, in the preseason, and then they decided to start him, and it didn't work out very well. So, if Gino, that is the biggest question. Last year, 21 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, but he also had 9 fumbles on that. So,
yeah.
when you have more turnovers than you have touchdowns, that's a big question. And I believe Pete Carroll can get the best out of him. I believe Chip Kelly can get the best out of him. It all comes down to, can Gino get the best out of himself? And, if he can do that, having a solid running game behind him, not having to have all the pressure on his shoulders, like Pete Carroll has preached, take the pressure off your quarterback, make it easy on him. Um, then I believe we can compete. Now, if Gino, if there's a competition where it's him and Aiden, Aiden's proving himself and Gino's struggling, then that changes a lot of things. But I think even with Aiden O'Connell, this is a damn good team.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still out there. I'm just saying.
Right?
Black getting silver.
And our defense, we had 3 picks, and that's Gino going against the second string defense, right? Because
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah, it is.
your starters go against your second team. So it was Chris Smith, who's going into his third year, got a pick. Jeremy Chin, who we just brought in, got himself a pick, and
Uh,
then Tommy Eichenberg on a pass to Brock Bowers, read Geno Smith and picked it. And from what I hear, if it was a football game, live game, he would have took it to the house. So
ooh,
that doesn't look good. And I
it
know it's
sounds
the
good to me.
the defense is always going to be ahead of your offense, but yeah, it's still.
So my next question is, how how did you feel about what went down with the Raiders organization and your former starter Derek Carr?
um as a lifelong Raider fan, I'm a huge Derek Carr fan. There's, a lot of people that feel different. He never did anything for us. He never won anything. I highly disagree with that. He holds
Me
every
too.
record. He holds every record in Raider Nation. The one time he had a defense that was inside the top 20 was 2016. They were 12-5. He
Yeah.
broke his leg, didn't get to play in the playoff game. When they had a good defense again, when John Gruden got fired, they brought in Rich Pasaccia, and they
Mm,
made it to the playoffs at 10-6. They lost that game, but other than that, I mean, he's never really had defense or offense around him. He's had a solid offensive line, but he's never had really big superstars. When he had Amari Cooper, he made it to the Pro Bowl. When he had Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, he made it to the Pro Bowl. 4 of those years he made it to the Pro Bowl. 3 of them were with Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, and the other one was with Devontae Adams. So,
mm-hmm.
that's it's just facts that if you give Derek Carr weapons, give him time, and give him a defense that's gonna give him more snaps than your opponent, more than likely we're gonna win. And then the fact that he's fourth all time in the NFL and fourth quarter comebacks says a lot for Derek Carr. His toughness, his character, his knowledge of the game, right? His determination, and
Yeah.
I feel like it was for all he did in the organization, they brought in Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, um, to just let him go, to make him sit home, tell him, you're benched, we're gonna cut you, sit home the last 2 games. I thought was dirty. And like I said, I love this organization, but we don't always do players the right way. There would have been teams willing to trade for Derek Carr even with his contract, and you could have got something out of him. So, to just let him go like that, I thought was wrong. And and we've paid for it, right? We've had Jimmy Garoppolo, we've had Gardner Minshew, we've had Aiden O'Connell, who
Yeah,
I think Aiden has done well. Um, Aiden O'Connell, just a fun fact that when the Raiders rushed for over 100 yards with Aiden O'Connell behind center, they're 6-1, and they would be 7-1 if it wasn't for the botch snap in Kansas City last year. So
yeah, that is right.
what what when you take stats like that, you have to think about that, man.
yeah,
What could this kid be if you give him, if the defense is what it's supposed to be, top 15, top 10 defense, and then you have a run game behind this kid. I believe he could actually be special. But it's Geno time, and I gotta believe in Geno and go with Geno. I hope for the best. I hope he has his best career best season of his career, because that means playoff time for us. So I believe that they'll do the right thing. I hope. The only thing I worry about, like I said, is the turnovers and Chip
hmm
Kelly. Chip Kelly's offense is not an easy offense.
no, it
There's
isn't.
there's a lot of things. So um, if you're not good at picking up things fast, then it could be
Yeah,
a slow start, and that's not going to be good for us. We can't afford to start slow when
yeah,
our easiest games are before the bye week. So, we got to hit those teams that have new coaches, new quarterbacks. We got to
mhm.
hit those games early. Um, with the ground running, not a quarterback that's slowly coming along for $60 million.
Yeah, yeah. If you're getting paid that much money, you're you gotta go.
Yeah, last year he went from people saying he was a top 15 quarterback. Now that he's on the Raiders, making $60 million guaranteed, he's a automatically a top 10. So I hope he lives up to that, and I hope it's not too much pressure, because with the weapons we have, if he can just control the turnovers, he has a chance to have a very huge year.
Nice. And I watched one of your videos. I was wondering, how did you manage to get an interview with the Marcus governor?
Oh, Woo Governor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Candy said she can't see this.
Um. So I went on. Actually, he liked a post on Instagram, so I just messaged him and was like, "Hey man, I'm a big fan. I think you have a chance to make this team. Would you want to do an interview?" So yeah, he said yeah. It took a couple times. He had to cancel once, then he had a
Okay.
baby the second time. But
Yeah.
yeah, he came on and talked. It's hard getting guys to come on an interview, because
Oh yeah.
if you don't DM them on Instagram, and then if they don't read it, then it's hard. You can't.
Yeah.
It's hard finding guys' info or emails to contact them. So I got lucky on that, and I've struck out many times since then. So yeah, just stuff like that. If you see guys like that in the comment section, comment on them or whatever, just hit them up, and
hmm
you know wish for the best.
Oh yeah. Well, my last question is: do you have any advice for the other
I
small
don't know.
YouTubers?
Maybe the guy's not streaming it, she said.
um yeah, pretty much just you know if you enjoy what you do, if you're passionate about it, just stay dedicated, put in as much time as possible. It's a lot of work. It takes a long time. I've only been doing it about a year and a half, but it's hard to grow a solid following and a solid fan base. So
Yes, it is.
if you're consistent, and you're posting not just on YouTube, but on every social media, whenever you can, just make a post or a comment saying, hey, what's going on, check out the show, we'll be live at whatever time. So as much stuff as you can get out there, as much as you can get your name seen, and then collaborating like this. Collaborating is
Yeah.
big, because you get guys, people from my channel, people from your channel, and then it helps when people share. So
Yes, it is.
just kind of get it. I know it's like beating a dead horse when you're constantly telling people like, subscribe, share the channel, but
Yeah.
but you have to, because um I forget all the time, but it's it's key, and people think you're constantly pushing it, but when people are listening to what you're saying, they're not thinking about, man, I should like this, or I should go subscribe to the channel, and then the
Yeah.
video's over, and they're like, oh man, who was that guy? What channel it was. So um yeah, just constantly trying to get people engaged by liking, sharing. The more stuff shared, and the more you collab, get your name out there. So yeah, just dedication, man, hard work. It just like anything else, the harder you work, the better things come. So
Well, yeah, I like that answer. So yeah, I just want to say thank you once again for giving me some time. I really appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. So let me ask you questions. How like
Yes.
what do you think the Packers chances are this year?
The Packers Cameron. Okay. We drafted Matthew Golden, so that's a good upgrade. The defense looks like it's getting better and better. But the only question is, can Jordan Love keep healthy, and can he play he he played two 2 years ago, where he just went off.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think Jordan Love is definitely the key that the team.
Yeah,
They were still in games, even with him hurt. What was it,
yeah.
Malik
Malik Willis
Yeah,
brought up
yeah.
two wins.
Yeah, so even with him in, that shows that it just shows when your backup can come in and win you games, you're a solid team. Like that's so you know
It helps when you have a guy like Josh Jacobs.
right? Yeah, yeah. You definitely have a bell cow you can hand the ball to, 30, 40 times a game, and I think he just gets better as the game goes on.
Yeah,
So
dude, he was a beast last year.
yeah, he's definitely a big reason you guys made the playoffs.
Oh yeah, and, I hope he keeps that up for another 5 or 6 seasons.
You know, I hope for you he does, but for us, um, for as a Raider fan, I hope he, kind of shows something, give us something like, don't have such a great year because he never had, great back to back years for us. It was one year, 1,000 yards, next year
Yeah,
800 with injuries. So,
yeah.
um, it makes it not as salty for me if he doesn't rush for 1,600 for you guys. I'll be
I'll be happy with 1,200.
right.
Anything. So yeah. But yeah, once again, thank you for doing this. This was awesome of you. I know it was on short notice, and I apologize for that short notice.
No problem. I had some things to do, but it was a little bit later on, so it fit right in the schedule. I wasn't
And,
doing much, so
and maybe I
uh,
can have you on again
yeah,
during
yeah,
the season.
anytime, yeah, yeah, you can come in. Definitely make fun of my schedule if we start out rough, 12-5.
Oh no, I don't do that to people. I don't do that to other fans. Yeah, we're all part of the same group of fans. We love football.
Right? Yeah, yeah. That's we all have the same passion. It's just different colors.
Yeah, different colors. But and is there anything that you want to plug or your YouTube channel? Go right ahead.
Um, yeah, it's just at Raiders Unleashed. My Instagram is Raiders Rebel. X is Raiders Rebel underscore. Pretty much Raiders Rebel on Snapchat, Facebook, anything else you can find me on. So, yeah, comment, ask me questions, like, subscribe to the channel, anything. I read all my comments. So, if you watch a video or got a comment or a question, feel free. And that's pretty much it.
And guys, I have all the information in the description, so you can go check his video out. So once again, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
do appreciate this. Thank you so much.
thank you, and you have a good night, man. Appreciate you.
You too. You have a great night.
Bye.
Alright, guys. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. I will have all his description. I have all the information in the description. And I just want to thank him once again for coming on. And like I always say, stay safe, stay positive, and always go pack go. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys. You have a good day.